we are here again. Hi,
We are.
Yvonne.
Hi, Evie. We are here again. Another Thursday. I honestly tell me that this isn't Groundhog Day because I'm like, what happens between Thursday and Thursday? It's like that.
It is going fast, isn't it? I maybe it is, that we are growing older.
Or
Uh,
maybe it's just because we're doing so many lovely,
maybe.
wonderful, brilliant things in between. The time just flies. Whatever.
Yeah, I prefer that. That's true. That is it. Like when you're having fun, time flies,
Yes.
and I think we are um, throughout our week doing things that we are really involved with, but in a good way, things that we like doing. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, undoubtedly, time flies. So well,
Indeed.
as long as time flies happily, it's okay. I'm all good.
Yeah. And we're here. So welcome. Welcome to anyone who's tuning in live, or if you're watching this on replay. Here we are, Permission to Thrive, where we are myth busting some of those narratives and stories and patterns that have been, I want to say, deeply embedded into us, often to the point that we don't even know that they are there. That for me is always the tricky bit, right? Is that, when we
Yes.
talk about raising awareness, is because a lot of the time we don't even recognize the patterns. It's only when we have the opportunity and the time to slow down and start to notice how we respond to certain situations. And I always do it that way. And I always say that we actually start to think, well, hold on a moment. These are three different situations, but I'm doing the same thing in all of them. What's going on with that? And really start to pay attention. And that's really what we are here to do, to really kind of look at these different patterns, some of the phrases that support that pattern, and our own experiences as well as experiences from our clients, and what we can do to just raise that awareness and perhaps choose something different the next time.
Yeah. And as you said, it is quite strange when we catch ourselves saying the same things or doing the same things, and we don't know why. We don't
Mm,
have this. It's not something conscious. We are like unconsciously following a pattern, and the moment we realize that there are patterns that run our lives, is the time of liberation, and that's how I have felt that.
yeah.
So today we're talking about something that's very close to my heart because I have really, even to this day, I am struggling with this. And no matter how much work I have done on myself, it still is something that I need to be very cautious about.
Mm.
So it is the boundary of the guilt trap. Well, it could be that I'm Greek and drama is in my blood, and I don't know what else. But yeah, guilt tripping, from a very young age, it's the thing that we do. So yeah, I'm hoping that I am not continuing the pattern. I'm just moving on without it. But the first um, phrase that we are going to talk about is setting boundaries makes me selfish. And it is this that is quite strong for me, like quite difficult for me to do. It's set boundaries. As much
Mm.
as I really, really know how to do it, why I should do it, it is very hard. But I'll talk about it in a little while. Yvonne, how do you feel about this? How does this sit with you?
Yeah, setting boundaries makes me selfish. Not really. It's not. I'm not gonna say that I don't relate to it. I certainly can't relate to it right now. Like now, I'm just like I have no problem setting boundaries, and if I'm perceived to be selfish because of it, that's okay with me. Because if I'm setting a boundary, it's usually to protect my time, my energy, my brain power. There's a purpose behind it that I don't feel I have to tell anyone. I'm just setting that boundary because of that. And, interestingly, when you were speaking there and you were saying, that that's something that perhaps still comes up for you, it's just like, it goes to show how deeply wired into the nervous system it becomes. right? That even when you can register it, like, okay, it doesn't just flip and change.
No.
There is still the work to do to unpack it. Um, and I think it comes up with, setting boundaries makes me selfish. For me, this it speaks into, fear of rejection, not being liked, not being something, and actually, I'll deal with the depletion over that. Like
Mm.
I'll go to depletion rather than feel like I'm being rejected because I said no and somebody feels and now I feel really bad and all of that. I don't know. How does it pan out for you?
The thing is, I have, and this is another interesting side of it, is that I have no problem setting boundaries professionally. I have no problem setting boundaries with specific, like with anyone, but specific individuals, and this is what is something that keeps coming up. And clearly, the work that I have done has helped me set boundaries in a professional environment, of
Yes.
course, and being more aware that setting boundaries is not a selfish act. On the contrary, it could be like an act of love, and it is the
Mm,
act of love towards self. And of course, because you're not depleted by setting the boundaries, you can be present for others when they really need you and be fully present. And this is what, helped me shift.
mm,
However, there are certain people in my life that I cannot set those boundaries. It feels very hard for me to
yeah.
deal with that. And usually these people are very close people, people that you are feeling that, okay, I'm going to let them down, or
Yeah.
like for example with my mom, it's like you want to be there for them because they were there for you, and even though it doesn't feel right for you, you're like, okay, one more time, one more thing, one more whatever. And I know logically that it's not the right thing to do for my own sanity, but it happens.
Yeah.
And maybe, the good thing is that I have found myself being able to at least be a little bit more proactive in setting boundaries with these specific people. And maybe out of the, I don't know, 10 times, I can do it the four, the five. That's a big progress.
That's a work in progress.
Yeah.
I think that's a work in progress. And as we always say, actually just being aware, just being able to recognize, I see how this becomes a bit of a struggle when it's this person, or I'm in this situation. I'm aware of it. That doesn't mean to say you don't have to go and rush and try to fix it, right? So it's the awareness, and then it's literally like you said, well, this time I'm going to practice what that looks like for me. And I want to see how does that feel in my body? Because I know every time I'm saying yes, I'm feeling it in my body and it doesn't feel good. Therefore, I know that it's unsettling me. So if I take a different approach, what does that now feel like? Because that's information, that's just feedback that you can take and just say, well, that felt just as comfortable as me saying yes. So for now, I'm going to say the yes, and I'm going to do some more work. What do that work. And we need to cut ourselves some slack so that we can do the work and not start feeling guilty because I meant to say no, but I ended up saying yes, and oh my gosh, what an awful person am I? No, that doesn't serve anyone. It certainly doesn't serve us. And interesting, we had a comment, and I'm sure Kalinda won't mind me reading it out because it's there on LinkedIn. But Kalinda had posted, and she said, "I let my boundaries go in one area of my life, and have learned the hard way through self-abandonment. So
Yeah.
abandoning self to please or be there for somebody else. But it taught me to pay attention to the feelings in my body because I felt it in my body every time. I just didn't think I had a choice." So even though it was felt in the body, didn't think that she had the choice. So realizing there is always a choice was one of my biggest lessons from that. And then through her own work, my love action for this was self-forgiveness and tenderness. And and that's what I'm saying is like we don't start beating ourselves up. It's like actually just be tender with yourself and just saying, listen, if twice out of 10 you hit the mark, be happy you hit the mark twice out of 10, right? Um, and because we are constantly a work in progress. We are all a work in progress, wherever we
Absolutely.
are. Um, and I think we need to honor that and honor ourselves. And that does mean that, we need to be tender with ourselves and we need to, forgive ourselves. Just let it go. Okay, so it didn't work that time. There'll be another time. Let's see what happens.
I mean, yeah, this is exactly it. And um, personally, every time that I have successfully set boundaries, I find that I am much better present for myself and for the other person that I have set the boundaries with. So it creates that, also when you're setting your own boundaries, um, you tend to respect more other people's boundaries. And this is a very important lesson to learn because, especially in communities and societies or cultures that, like you have very strong family ties, and it is important. I'm not saying no to that by any means. There is, though, almost with this strong bond, like that sense of like, boundaries don't matter, but they do.
Mm,
And they do very, very much. And you see, nowadays, psychologists are talking about respecting the boundaries of your own toddlers and your own
mm,
like really young children, because this is how you teach them as well what how to respect themselves and to
yes.
respect others. And it is a great lesson to be, to
Yeah.
learn at a very young age, and it creates much more grounded individuals and self-respecting individuals. So
Yeah. I
it
like that.
is,
I think that that's where do any of these things start? So in the same way that we have embodied not having boundaries, we can do the kind of parenting or overseeing that ensures that they do know how to set boundaries and that they are respected. And interestingly, when you were talking about, when you set boundaries and when somebody else has boundaries, there's no friction. There's less friction. I'm not saying there's less friction because it's like, well, I've
absolutely.
got boundaries too. So, of course, why would they not? As opposed to thinking, oh my gosh, they didn't want to do that for me. Is there something wrong with me or is there something badly wrong with them? All of those kind of conversations that end up going on in your head when actually, here you are, you're just in front of somebody who will own their yeses and their nos, and they're not even going to necessarily explain them. And that for
Absolutely.
me is actually that's role modeling. That's role modeling as
Yeah,
opposed to rejection, which is the almost like the initial thing that comes up. Somebody says no, it's a rejection. Sometimes it's not a rejection. It's just a no. It's just a no and it's just a yes. And even if you're not given any backstory because you don't have to have a backstory to go with it, just accepting that that person is saying no, and they're probably saying no to protect something of their own. How is that a bad thing? And whether that is their time or their energy or, a situation, they have the right to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And like also when you like in the beginning, I suppose, when you are trying to learn or relearn how to set boundaries, it might be um, a good practice to explain, but at the same why you are setting the boundaries, why you're saying no, just so you minimize that friction if possible, or if, because okay, there are some people that will always take it badly when you say no, so what can you do? But like for your own. And that's how I started like building up to
Mm,
this. For your own sake, you are explaining, but not explaining in an apologetic way. That's a very different thing. You're
mm,
just explaining your need, and that is a very different thing. But being apologetic about your action, and as you said, saying no for all of us should be like just an accepted response, not necessarily something that needs to be analyzed, give meaning to in whatever form or way that you have in your mind, or something that needs to start, the
mm,
scenarios going in your head. And it doesn't matter whether it is in a family environment or at work or whatever,
mm.
because it is tied in with respect, and that is important for both yourself and the other person. um
Yeah,
I think.
definitely. And it's interesting because I think going back to what you were saying at the beginning when you were talking about, perhaps specific relationships, it's much more difficult, a bit more
Yeah,
of a challenge. And and kind of understanding that again, that's hardwiring because those relationships you're talking about are the closest ones, right?
absolutely, yes.
They have been doing, and there's cultural expectations plotted into that as well. So
Yes.
it's a lot. So it's about giving yourself the space to be able to say, I see it. I am aware. I know I can see it. It doesn't need to be any more laid out than it is. I now need to decide how that plays out for me in each scenario that occurs. And then maybe some scenarios where you just think, oh, just it's fine. I'll just do. And others where you just like, this has to be a hard no.
Yeah,
And whether you go for the yes, the no, the maybe, that they're your choices, and then you own them, and then you don't whinge and moan about them. And I say that because not only have I probably done it myself, but I've certainly heard it as well. Oh, I said yes to so and so, and oh my gosh, I wish I hadn't because da da da. It's like, hold on a moment. You said yes. Go figure it out.
yeah,
Go figure it
exactly.
out. Own it.
And you see, this is also part of the, like, as you said, own it, is part of the responsibility. At the end of the day, our
Mm,
actions are important to be like, whatever they are, to be owned by us, to have the responsibility. Because the moment you have the responsibility of something, you are in control of something, you are in charge of it, you can do something about it or not. So this is the continuation of the dialogue, I guess, in your head. When you say yes, when you want to say no, just decide that, okay, that was the answer today without judgment, and I'm going to do what I have to do, but I will know, I will learn from this. And next time, say my strong no and get on with it. I mean, I think that that's what is everything, with regards to patterns and noticing patterns. I think is about the lesson, is about what you're going to do next. It's not so much about right now and what have I done and all this judgment that
yeah.
goes or comes with it.
Yeah. And that's why, a lot of the work that we do, that we take, from that we draw on from positive intelligence as a sensory work, just so we can break states, because these are also states. These are also,
Yeah.
breaking these states, these patterns. How do we even break them so that we don't keep on just falling into them, and constantly raising our awareness so that we can consciously then make the yes and the no or the maybe, whatever that is. We can do that from a much more conscious place. And even if we still end up saying the thing that we didn't mean to, we say yes when we meant no, we say no when we meant yes, that, okay, I said that. I heard myself, I see it. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. I'm not going to now put on my boxing gloves and use myself like a punch bag. I'm going to say that that happened, and there will be another situation, and let's see how I manage that one. See it, own it, notice what might you do differently the next time.
And it is likely that you are going to do something differently because we learn. We learn with the actions that we take. And that takes us well in our next phrase, which to me, this is the boxing glove kind of scenario or the punching bag kind of scenario. I should be able to cope, and those shoulds there again. Okay?
Yeah, and of course, in terms of saboteur, excuse me, I was going to say, I think my voice is going. That would be a disaster for me anyway. Um, so typically, like the hyperachiever, the judge, because the judge is constantly judging, but the hyperachiever, I should be able to cope. I should be able to say, literally, I should be able to say yes to everything that's being asked of me because I should have the capacity. Why? Where is this undying, unending capacity coming from? Because more often than not, you haven't even created enough space for the immediate, for the present, and yet now you're wanting it to expand itself when you haven't even fed yourself, you haven't even nourished yourself, you haven't filled your cup up. And this for me is the kind of phrase where if you don't notice it, very soon it will be the ill health of you. Uh, it will take you down that path because you absolutely feel that you should be able to do everything. Because why would somebody come and ask me if they didn't think I could do it? Of course I can do it. I must do it. So this goes on the list. On a list that's already probably longer than you have enough time to do the stuff you need to do. And you have to, this is like we have to be mindful. And we have to also understand that we have limits of how much we can do, what we can do when. Having limits is what makes us human. Now, if you're superhuman and you have no limits, more power to you. That is not my story. So it just isn't. So I know for myself, I not that this necessarily comes up for me in this way. However, I can see where in the past, especially work on a professional level, opportunities, opportunities, opportunities. But yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, before I know it, I've sliced myself into 100 pieces. It's like, well, I don't even know what piece to do first. And actually, how am I going to do all these 100 pieces? I'm so glad that that is not for me anymore. I'm lucky now if I've got 4 pieces to worry about, not 100, right? But I have made it so because it was ridiculous. It was completely out of control. I literally didn't know where my time was going because I was constantly I was just doing. I was doing. And if somebody said to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't even know. I'm just doing. Stuff's getting
Yeah.
done." So, yeah, I should be able to cope really is about, what's your true capacity? And even to be able to see that, sometimes you need to step back. You need to pause and you need to notice what is my true capacity? And then understanding that actually, if you're having to say no because there are some limits, that's okay. Guess what? You're human.
Mm-hmm. But also, I want to add to this because I think that that's my own belief, but that we can be limitless. But how? We can be limitless if we give ourselves the space, if we give
Yes.
ourselves the time, if we re-nourish ourselves. So it's not about go, go, go. It's not about, yeah, I'll do like 300 things. It's about prioritizing. It's about understanding yourself, what you need in order to move forward. And you might sometimes take steps that feels like one step back, two forward, whatever, but it doesn't matter because there is progress. It's not idleness. It's like something that is happening. And the more you honor yourself with understanding possibly your capacity, as you say, Yvonne, or understanding what you need in order to expand, then you can potentially be limitless. But not just by spreading yourself thin. You need to understand, you need to be strategic in order to be limitless.
Yeah. Yeah. And yes, you know, that whole kind of limitless but limitless for me is not the same as is not having any boundaries because even if I have limitless potential, I'm still going to have boundaries. I'm going to have boundaries, right? They will continue to exist. And I will own those shamelessly. I will just have them because I believe in, you know, when you were talking about having that the capacity, but to have the capacity, you've got to fuel yourself, etc., etc. So, and I was talking this morning on a webinar, and I was saying, for me, like my day is about efforting, recovering. That's my day. That's how I work. That's how I keep my energy high because I effort and I recover. I do not effort, crash. Have I done that before? Absolutely. Will I do it now? No, I'm sorry. There's a boundary straight away. That is not a plan for me because it makes me miserable for one, and it doesn't bring out the best in me. It doesn't help me deliver my best work. It just doesn't. So I am on the efforting recovery, and it's a rhythm. And the rhythm may change slightly day to day. Sometimes there's a lot more efforting, but with and a little less of a recovery, but it's still going to happen. And other days it's a little less efforting and a lot more recovery, and that's all good. Finding that rhythm for the day that you have created or the day that you want to have. That for me is important. And then that thing, I should be able to cope. Well, if you've found your rhythm, you will be able to cope.
Exactly. That's what I mean, limitless. I mean that you are in charge, basically, of your own limits, but with the respect to yourself to be able to get there in your own times, not necessarily just do. Because as you said, unless you replenish, unless you give, like you honor yourself, there is no way that do be able to continue forever. I mean, we're not that kind of limitless.
And you know this thing about honoring yourself, because and I always remember that the phrase, and I cannot remember where I first heard it, but it was like, you know, how you treat yourself teaches other people how to treat you. So if you are not honoring yourself, why would anybody else honor you? If you
Absolutely.
are constantly yesing to everybody's demands, why would they suddenly go look anywhere else for a yes? Because guess what? I can come to you and I know I'm going to get it. So even from that perspective, understanding that this is about teaching yourself how to honor yourself and teaching others how to honor you too. And then they know that when you say your yes or you say your no, that it is meant and it is true. And I'm not even going to try and flip flap here. I get it. I got it. We're good.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we are reaching our time to wrap this up. And I hope that that was an episode that you really, it sort of resonated and you got something out of it. Please leave your comments.
Yes.
Whether you seen us live or on the replay. We love myth busting.
We do. And just to add, as we're signing off, just, you know, this I should be able to cope is be prepared to ask for support.
Yeah.
Especially in those situations, in those places where you would normally just push through, push through. You know, you can train yourself to keep on doing that. You can train your nervous system to just have to manage it. But at some point, your body's going to say, I'm actually done with this. This is not okay. I've asked you and I've asked you and you've ignored me. Now I'm going to show you. So I
Yeah,
think that that's really important to understand as well. Treat your body with
absolutely.
respect.
Yeah, no,
Awesome.
no, no, 100%. Because that's what, burnout looks like, doesn't it, Yvonne?
Yeah.
Like just pushing through and asking for help overall, I think is a great attribute, a great thing to know how to do. Because we all need help
Yeah,
once in a while.
absolutely. And it's not just the knowing, 'cause lots of people know, it's the applying, it's the actual doing.
Yeah,
I don't know if there's anyone that I ever say, you need to ask for help. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, but I know that you know it, but do you do it? Because these are two very different things. The knowing
yeah,
and the doing are not the same. So be prepared and know that there is nothing wrong with that. It's just validating your own needs and being able to say, actually, in this situation or these circumstances, I'm not in a position to do everything, and therefore I'm not going to make myself. And I think that for me is self-respect.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we'll say goodbye again.
Yeah.
Now that I've thrown that
Why not?
in,
Take it from the top. That's fine. I
that's
love
the thing
those
about going live, you see. It's like, and you think you're finished, and just something else comes up, and then I just need to learn this
discussions.
first. Hold on.
It is important to
Yes,
discuss those, though. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's absolutely fine.
that's
That's
how we roll.
us
That's us.
done for now.
Absolutely.
Until
Thank you so
next
much, Emmy.
Thursday. Thank you, Yvonne. It's a pleasure, like always.
As
Take
always.
care.